Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be going through building a tip sheet for servers in Notion. My name is Connor Byrne. I've been working with Notion for approximately 3 years, and my goal today is to help servers and those in the service industry that take in tips be able to tally up their tips, not only on the daily, but the weekly, the monthly, and the yearly, and be able to make certain corrections to their actual take-home income, and add variables that or show you how to add variables that will be able to personalize your tip sheet to your advantage. But today we're going to make a generalized sheet to exercise a particular task, which is how much money you taking in. How much money you taking in, and we're going to find out on Notion. So let's get into it. Okay, here we are in a blank Notion template. The first thing we're going to do, let's give this thing a name, because before we start anything, anyone, we need to give them or it a name. So let's call it Tip Ledger. Awesome. And you know what? We'll add some bling to it. A small win. Let's get some dollar bills. Boom. There's a ledger. Alright, let's go and go full width. Today we'll stick with a default of serif. And we'll start with a blank page. Okay, so for this particular sheet, we're going to need our daily tips. And that's going to be a database. And it's going to be full page. So for our daily tips, we're just going to be calling it daily ledger. Tips ledger. And the tips ledger, we're going to need a date field. And this date field, I personally like to work within the year, month, date range, but obviously you can build this to your liking, or as a template on connorbyrne.net. This will be available to you, and you can change some of the presets. But for now, we made it year, month, day, and I'm going to stick to 24 hours. So we have a date field. Awesome. So we can say that this is for a tip for today. We're going to call it, we're going to actually name this, and we're going to call this day, let's just call it entry. And the reason we're going to call it entry is because anytime that we have a daily entry, let's just use a date reference. So let's do 2023-01-17, and we can reference 2023-01-17 by day. We can actually use this as a reference in any other related database. So we have that. We're going to actually put in a number, and this is going to be called amount. This is the amount of money that we've made for this day. Finally, we're also going to do a number for hours worked, number of tables, awesome, and we need, and for there, I'm going to stick with that. This is technically for the day that you're working. You basically want to know what day you're working, the amount of money that you're making, the hours that you are working, and the number of tables. These are very simple round numbers, and we can also format this number. Let's format the number as a US dollar. So now, let's say I make $100. Now that shows up as $100. Awesome. Now, let's just make sure this fits. Awesome. Okay. Moving forward, we have our daily tips ledger. We worked 8 hours, and we did 10 tables. Awesome. Now we need to make a template here. Let's call it new ledger entry. So we have date, hours, tables. I'm also going to create a formula. Now this formula is going to be pretty simple, but we want this to be called average per table. This is the amount of money that we're making per table. Now the average per table is going to be, it's going to be the amount divided by the hours. Divide prop amount by so we're going to divide property amount and property tables. Awesome. And so that's the amount per table. We're going to make one more formula, and we're going to make this formula the hourly wage. So this is your actual wage, and we're going to make this a formula, and we're going to divide, and we're going to take property amount by the hours. Cool. This gives us a basic of the amount of money we're making per table and the actual hourly wage. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to stick with these properties. We realistically don't need to add anything else to this entry here, but I'm just going to add, I always like to add a notes section. And this is just going to be, what happened at work today. Something notable might happen. If that's the case, we can at least put that in the note for the ledger entry. All right, so we have our ledger. One date entry, perfect. Average per table is $10 per table. And we'll actually, what we'll do is we'll edit this property in the number format, US dollar, and edit property number format, US dollar. So look, you're making $12.50 an hour. Obviously, you need to be paid more, but for this case, this works. So we're going to call this all entries. Now, if we take all entries and we dupe it, we're going to call this weekly, and the weekly, and this is going to filter by date is within the past week. So anything within the past week, we get it here. We'll also do a dupe, and we'll filter for monthly. Filter is within the past month. Awesome. And finally, we'll do a yearly table, and we will filter by date is within the last month. Nope. And you know what? It's late, and I will filter by the past year. Awesome. So, and actually, that's even wrong. We're actually going to rename this as 2023. Awesome. Yearly filter is within a custom date of 01/2/2023, 12/31. Now we have our yearly. Now, we can also calculate on a weekly. We can calculate the amount, so the sum for all of these sum. We don't really need anything like this. One final field we're going to add is day. It's going to be a formula called day. The formula is going to be format date for date equals dd. Awesome. Now, in the weekly time frame, that's fine. For the monthly, we don't really need to deal with this for right now, but we can hide it in the view. And now I'm going to leave it, or I'm going to get rid of it here. Hide in view, but this will come in handy later. I'll show you why. A board view. But for now, we're in all entries. Now, if we go back to our tips ledger, you'll see that's a page there. We also want a database full page, and we want to call this our weekly ledger let's call it the ledger roundup. Let's just call it weekly ledger. Now, the weekly ledger is going to be a date field. Type date, full date, 24 hours. Awesome. Tip ledger, we're going back to the weekly ledger. So this is going to be 2023 01/16 through, what is the, we're going to see it's from the 16th to the 22nd. 16th through the 22nd. Now we have a weekly ledger, so from the 16th through the 22nd, we have a date. I'm also going to name this as the week. And we actually need to create a roll-up. And this is going to be called the weekly total. Or the weekly total. Let's call it total wage. It's going to be a relation to the ledger. You know what? And the reason it's not working is because we need this, and we need to create a relation in order to create a roll-up to our daily tips ledger. Awesome. So for now, this isn't a big deal, but here, existing relation, daily tips, we want the wage show sum. Now, total paid. Add a property, and we want the amount paid show the sum. The reason it's not showing up is because if we go back to the tips ledger, daily tips ledger, we actually need to open up this entry, and it's for this week. Alright? Now when we go back to the weekly ledger, you'll notice that $100 shows up. Beautiful. Don't have to worry about this for now. But now we have our ledger of tips for the week, and what we can do is in our template, we're going to call this the weekly ledger template. We want to create a data linked database view, and we're going to do this to the daily tips ledger and filter where delete this, add a filter where the weekly ledger contains weekly ledger template. So whenever we create any new ledger, it actually shows us everything that we need. So the amount of money that we paid. We also want to do a roll up for the relation to daily tips. We want the number of hours and calculate the sum. So we only worked 8 hours. Now, something I'm going to add in here is a bar. We're going to divide it by 40. So let's say you want to work a 40-hour week. You can see how many hours you're actually working. You could change this to whatever you want, but this is out of 40. For the total amount of money paid, and we want another roll-up. We want to call this tables. So relation daily tips ledger calculate show for the number of tables, calculate the sum, and finally we want to roll up for the wage that you made for this week, because it's important if we're looking at the actual wage that you made to see how much money you actually made. So in this case, we want to show the wage sum. Actually, the wage edit, we need it to be the average of each wage. So if you create a new ledger item for, let's say you worked on the 19th, you made $400 for 8 hours at 12 tables. That's a wage of $50. Now your wage has immediately gone up to $31.25. So you can actually in real time see how your wage changes. Cool. So you have the hours, and then finally, with this weekly ledger in place, the final thing that we want is to create entries very quickly. So if you were to go in your tips ledger, instead of having to click into here and then create something, we just want to make this really quick and easy. So we're going to call this new, let's do new ledger entry. I'm going to create a toggle, and then we are going to create a database link to daily tips ledger and filter by date is today. Since we already created one, that's fine, but the final thing we do want to do is create layout and gallery, because we want a card, page content none, card size medium, peak, center is fine, and then properties, we want to add the amount, we want to add the hours, we want the number of tables, and you're good to go. Anytime you create a new entry from your phone, it's going to be nice, quick, and easy. And we're going to keep it like really, really bare bones simple for today. We are going to turn this to blue. Now, whenever you open this on your phone, very easily renders a card and the things that you can add. Now, that's basically it. Daily ledger, weekly ledger for your tips. We could add to this more, but this is how you make a tips ledger for a server. We'll do one last thing to make it pretty. Let's do, I don't know, what vibe are you looking for? Boom. So that's what your daily tip ledger looks like. as a final note, just want to say thank you for following along to build your daily tips ledger. My name is Connor. This will be available on my website, connorburn.net/shop. And if you have any questions, you can always leave them down in the comment below. If you would like to see something added to this type of template, you can leave that in a comment. Or in general, if you need help with these types of things on a personal level, you can always email support@connorburn.net. Thank you so much. My name is Connor, and I'll see you next